This looks like a trunk, doesn't it? Is it a trunk? Nope. Let's look at the other side. Is it a suitcase? Nope. Is it a child's toy? Nope. What it is it's one of these, a coffee mug. See? So, let's see how the coffee brew turns out. I better add some sweetener and some nice coffee cream. So, just a second, I'll be doing. There's some good organic half and half coffee creamer. And next I will add the sweetener. That is stevia or stevia. I better stir it up real good or it's not going to taste too good. Well, stay tuned. There's going to be more to talk about. I'm going to now pause so I can go over to the activity table. Please stay tuned. Okay, I've now placed myself on the activity table so I can sit here and chat with you and there's none of this shakiness. How I obtained this coffee mug, look at it. That's what the coffee looks like. How I obtained this coffee mug was, it was an eBay purchase. It was actually an eBay auction where the opening bid, or the only initial bid that you can place on it, because there had been no previous bids placed on this before, was $4. So I thought, well, I'll put $4.01. And then I thought to myself, okay, if nobody else is interested and nobody else bids, great. It's meant to be I have this. And if somebody else outbids me, that's it. I'm not going to try to uh, place a bid that is outbidding their bid and get into a battle to win this, because that would be stupid. Yeah, this is a coffee mug that has little designs of certain parts of Washington, D.C. And it's pretty neat to have. It's about Washington, D.C. It's called a travel mug. There we go. I adjusted that a little bit. And my lovable kitty has placed herself right next to me. Now she jumped out. Oh, well, that's cats. What can you do? Okay, so there's going to be 2 other vlogs previous to this one. The first previous vlog, that was the first one of today, will be a visit to Jelly Cafe. The second vlog is me walking nearby from 13th and Pearl to 10th Street. I swear to God, I had full intentions to go all the way till 6th Avenue, and then I was going to finish the daily stroll. But due to the fact it started raining, I thought, well, I mean, my first thought was, before I gave my outro, was, okay, I might as well just go ahead and stop, because me trying to film it is going to be difficult, and it's going to be too much of a distraction, and there's going to be little raindrops that are going to pop up on the screen, and things are not going to look so good. So I ended the vlog, and then I placed this smartphone back in the cell phone holder or holster that is on my hip, belted onto my hip. And then what I did was I walked to 6th Avenue, and when I got to 6th Avenue, I walked one more block east until I got to Washington. And where I went was Cigars on 6th, smoker-friendly cigar shop, tobacco shop. And I proceeded to buy a Alcazar cigar. And I sat in one of the really nice chairs that they have. I mean, they got some fold-up chairs, and they got some leather wingback chairs, and they got some other nice chairs. I mean, it's a really nice atmosphere. It's a really neat place to be. And once I was before I was finished with the cigar, I went over and I chatted with a guy named Don, who I've known since about 2017, 2018. Yeah. He's a really neat guy. And this man, based on his age, and my father have met before. Don went to him to have some diesel repair work done when my father had his own diesel repair business. Way back when. I mean, the business has been closed down for 39 years by now. Yeah. And my father went to go do something else as far as being a mechanic. He worked for about 3 different companies, and then he called it quits, and he moved to Pueblo, Colorado, and him and his wife mutually agreed, or excuse me, my stepmother mutually agreed. They mutually agreed, sorry. Getting a little tangle-tongued about getting into property investment. They'd been planning on this for over a year prior to moving there. And my dad's probably going to be a little upset with me saying this, but I'm going to go ahead and say it. Between November of 2000 to December 31st of 2000, of 2000, which would be New Year's Eve. Or it might have been a little afterwards, like January or February of 2001, he obtained ownership of 4 different houses on top of the one he was living at and still is living in. And then by the end of 2002, he had ownership of 15 single family homes. And by just a few days before Thanksgiving of 2000, or no, about 2 or 3 weeks before, it was either late October, early November of 2003, he sold one of the houses. And then between 2004 and 2012, he had 14 single-family homes. And I have discussed this many times before this video. In June, after June 24th, actually more like July 1st of 2011, after I'd been released from the hospital for about a week, I began working on one house to do some cleaning and a little bit of maintenance work on a house that he was going to get cleaned up, painted on the insides, and some other things to get it ready to sell it. And then, excuse me a second, need a sip of coffee. And then after the house on Eilers, I think we went to work on a house on a street called Route, R-O-U-T-T. We got that house all cleaned up, and I remember doing some wall scrubbing to scrub the walls with a certain ointment and a brush that he has, and then some other houses got or some other rooms got painted, and he replaced some kitchen sinks and the kitchen sink, bathroom sink, and some other things. Yeah, and he put that one on the market too. And then I helped him clean up a house on Rice. I think it's Rice Avenue. It's close to the back part of the Colorado State Fairgrounds. Yeah. You know, the back part, the back side instead of the front side, the back end of it. And I helped him get that all cleaned up, and I helped him do some yard work. And I remember helping him on a trip to the dump. Yeah, because there was so much brush and stuff that needed to be thrown, and some other things that needed to be thrown away. And then the last house that he and I worked on was a terrible mess. It was on a street called Carteret, or Carteret, C-A-R-T-E-R-E-T. And I tell you, the first 2 days, I did nothing but collect a ton of trash that was all over that house. Clothes, non-perishable food, stuff that had been expired that should have been thrown away years ago, trash bags, newspapers, all kinds of crap. And I think we took that to the dump after we got that all loaded up. Either the first visit or the second, something like that. And then I started doing some other cleaning stuff, vacuuming. And at one point, the valves, those brass valves that go into the shower those big knobs that are in the shower, the hot and cold for the wall where all the shower plumbing is. He replaced those, and there was so much soap scum on a white bathtub. It took me 45 minutes to scrub it out and rinse it out real good and then wipe it down. And I thought, okay, I did a good job, but I better have my dad inspect this. And he was smiling. He's like, wow, I'm really impressed. And then I proceeded to clean the rest of the bathroom. And we did more work and more work and more work and more work in that house, because that lady really ran that house into the ground. Ugh. I think we took at least 2 trips to the dump because of what she did. Yep. Okay, then I helped him do a little bit of maintenance work here and there with some other houses. Whoops, excuse me. A house on Bowman, a house on 2 different houses on Van Buren, a house on Pine Street, a house on Arroyo, and 2 different houses on Spruce that were next to each other. Like, I mean, they weren't duplexes, but they were 2 individual single-family homes that were about that far apart, instead of like this. And I'm trying to think of what else I did. Well, I helped him clean. I helped him with do some maintenance on, out of ones that were occupied, probably at least 8 houses, maybe more than that. Yeah. Oh yeah, I think I went to the one on Mayron at least once. Okay. So then what happened was, I think it was roughly a week before Thanksgiving, I had a grand mal seizure. In the one area of the house I was allowed to go to, as long as I would tell my dad, because I wanted to hook up the Cat 5 cable to the laptop that he gave me as a birthday present on my 38th birthday, which was July 13th, 2011. Yeah. And while I was watching a rerun of Hawaii Five-0 on YouTube, I fainted and I had some convulsions. And then I stayed unconscious for a while, and then when I wake up, I felt nauseous at first, but then I snapped out of it. And then I hear my dad talking, and I went and I talked to him about it. And basically, he just said, okay, he says, well, it's pretty much time for you to go to bed. Why don't you get some sleep, and I'll decide tomorrow what we're going to do about this, because he says, you really need to go see a doctor. Okay. So I went to sleep, and I slept good. And then right after I get up, at the time that I was always supposed to get up, I showered and shaved, brushed my teeth, got dressed, and I come into the dining room area of the kitchen. It's off to the left instead of to the right. Or no, actually, when you're standing this way, it's to the left, but when you're turned the other way around, it's to the right, and then to the left. Okay, so anyways, the dining area is just a dining table where he often eats breakfast, lunch, and dinner, unless he wants to eat in front of his, sitting on his recliner chair. And he also gets up every morning like clockwork, and he reads the newspaper, the Pueblo Chieftain. Yep. Or he'll read the Holy Bible or whatever he decides to read. Okay, so I went over to him and I said, "Good morning, Dad." And my dad said, in a fairly blunt but even-handed, decent way, he says, "Matt, I'm gonna take you to Parkview Hospital's emergency room and get you checked out after what happened last night. He says, we have to do it. And I said, words to the effect, I said, okay, Dad, I'm not going to argue with you. I said, that's probably something we have to do. He says, yes, we have to. We got to get going soon because I got other things to do today. And I said, okay. I said, can I toast a bagel and eat it before we go? He says, okay, make it quick. Let me pause for a minute. This coffee mug, as you can see from the shape of it, you gotta know how to sip out of it because it's a little different. It's not completely round or square. It's got a unique, one of a kind, square but round top shape to it, like a suitcase, like a trunk. Okay. So. Anyways, after I ate the bagel, toasted with butter, with butter, and had a little bit of coffee or whatever, we got in the truck, and he drove me about a 2.9 to 3 mile drive to where Parkview Hospital Emergency Care is. And I got checked in, and he said what he had to say on his end. And we went into a private emergency room, and they drew a couple of vials of my blood. They took my blood pressure several times, and they did a little bit of a CAT scan. And they also x-rayed me. And my dad said what he had to say to a doctor, I think his name was Dr. McDonald. And then he did his research that he was supposed to do, and I think he might have had a little bit of a discussion with a clinical specialist or a neurological specialist. And then he comes back when he's about to end the visit and discharge me. He says, well, his seizure wasn't all that serious, but I'm going to give you guys a script of Epital 200 milligrams, and he needs to take this every single day, which I did. And then this was roughly around the time, it was right after the great actor, he was 95 or 96 when he passed away, the guy who played Colonel Potter on MASH, and before that he played Detective Bill Gannon on Dragnet, when Dragnet got revived and was on TV between early 1967 and mid to late 1970, and then the show was canceled because it just whatever, the ratings were not good, or Joe Friday Jack Webb had enough and wanted to get into something else. And it was somewhere between December 5th and December 8th. I can only say this because it's been over 10 years by now. I went to have a consultation with, I can't say his full name, but Christopher. A guy who lives who has a office in the part of Littleton, Colorado, that is what I call the original downtown Littleton. It's past Santa Fe. It's between Santa Fe. It's closer to Santa Fe Drive, and it's a few blocks west of Broadway and Littleton Boulevard. And we'd been there before. My father knew how to get there without a problem, without getting confused. He spent between 1969 and 2000 in the Denver area. He knows a lot about it. I mean, a lot, because of business things he did and things he did to meet with friends and for some other things I really cannot talk about, or my old man's going to want to suck me out. Oh yeah, it's a group that he belongs to that I cannot talk about. Support group. Okay, so then we showed up about a half hour late, and my dad made sure to call to let him know we were still going to make it. We go into the office, and the Christopher, or Chris, told me that this was the most he could get after working on it for over 6 months, and I was going to be awarded an out of court settlement of $100,000. Yes. And I signed the document calmly, and he gave me the first installment of it, which was, well, I'll just go ahead and say it's over $15,000, but it's between $15,000 and $16,000, the exact figure. I really better not say it. I feel that could be back to Carmen on my end. And I had a checking account with Wells Fargo. So the next day I left the house and I deposited. But okay, so let me get back to the day of achieving the settlement. The day before this, when it was already planned, I made a ton of phone calls about apartments for rent. And I was upfront with them about the fact that I hadn't been working for some time. I called probably at least 12 different properties. The one thing where there was definitely a good possibility I could get an apartment was Cobblestone Hill apartment. That was owned by the same company that owned what used to be called the Glen on the 9600 block of East Girard, and is now Grand Mercy Apartment Homes because it's under totally different ownership now. So I went into Cobblestone Hill and I spoke with a really nice lady named Vanessa or something like that. She spoke with a little bit of an accent, but she was very, very efficient on how to do her job. Yeah. And then I filled out the application. Or no, correction. I filled out the application after I got home. And I faxed it to him. And then the next day my dad was hesitant. And pretty much did not want to co-sign on the apartment for rent. So a couple of days later, what we did is he and I sat down and had a private father and son talk about it. And I made sure to be quite civil, and he was too. And one of the key things I said before I convinced him is I said, yeah, but Dad, those apartments are going to be at least $550. Those people, the one place that has $550, they want me to have a job, and they want me to have a letter of offer of employment before I even have a chance. Or they're going to want me to pay double the deposit. I don't think that's going to work, Dad. I'm sorry, I don't think it's going to work. He says, in that case, I'll co-sign for you. He says, bring me the application. And he filled it out, and he says, okay, fax it to him and get it to him right away, because do it before I change my mind. You know how it is. You know what to do. So I did. And then I called the manager of the lady who was she was the head manager, the general manager, instead of just an assistant manager. And I proceeded to do something that was a requirement. I went to the post office, or I did it at Walmart, or I did it at Safeway. I got a money order for a little over $200. I think it was like $250 or something to that effect, to put a hold on the apartment, and I sent it out immediately. Priority mail. And then 3 to 4 days later, I get the call, meaning that I was approved for 11 month lease with Cobblestone Hill Apartments. And sorry, I was just looking at how much time I've been here doing the filming. Okay. Okay, so I got the good phone call that I was approved, and I remember as I am listening to this phone call, I'm like smiling ear to ear. Oh goodness, let me do something really quick here. Okay. I had to put in the USB charging cable because I was down to 5% power, and I was like, oh, you better kick it in right away. Okay. So as I'm getting this information, I walk over to Dad and I reach out my hand, I shake hands with him because I'm smiling ear to ear. I'm like really happy. And what the date was that I was supposed to move in, and me and my dad mutually went along with this, was December 19th, 2011. Yeah. And what I did is I notified a few of my friends, and I gave them the apartment number and the whole 9 yards. And I think somewhere in there, I called Denver Health to get reestablished with what's called outpatient care physician named Dr. Kevin Bogart. I shouldn't say his full name, but nah. What are they going to do? I'm probably not going to get much of a consequence from that one. Okay, so then a few days before moving day, I think it was roughly about 3 to 4 days, my dad backed his truck out of the garage, and I took all the stuff in the basement and I stacked it up in the garage. And then what I did was I did other things to prepare to move. And there were two difficulties though on moving day, despite the fact it happened. Okay, I got up when I was supposed to, and I said, good morning, Dad. I said, today's the big day. He said, yep, you're right. You better get ready. I ate a bagel, and I think I might have had a little bit of cereal or something. My dad didn't want me to eat too much because he didn't want me to wind up like extremely overweight. And it's understandable why he would have that concern. Then I grabbed the cat carrier, and I had a hell of a time getting Penguin the cat into the cat carrier. Just a second, I'll be right back. I'll show you a photograph the cat if this is the first time for certainty. Okay, here is one of the first photographs I've taken of Penguin the cat when she's playing with a little mouse that is filled up with catnip. I mean, she's really doing it. And as you can see, that's my hand. That is likely my right hand. No, that's my left hand. That's my left hand. And this item right here, here's the significance of it. It isn't just a Timex Indigo wristwatch. It was the exact same wristwatch that was placed on my body that was destroyed way beyond repair on April 6, 2011, after my body hit the ground hard. And I was suffering from not only a parietal skull fracture, I was suffering from subdural hematoma, and I was bleeding in the brain. And my prescription eyeglasses were destroyed way, way, way beyond repair. Okay. Let me put the picture back and I'll get back to you guys. Okay, so after I got her in there, I said, okay, Dad, she's in there. Wham! He moves his hands fast without making that offensive, uncalled for slamming of the door. And then I got a couple other things, and then we got into the truck. A nice, large Dodge Dakota with a good-sized pickup in. When we got to the highway, that it was just a little bit past Pueblo, my dad is all cussing because he saw some things flying out off the pickup bed. And then we saw what was out in the middle of the street. And my dad says in a very, very sick at heart tone of voice, Matthew, I'm really sorry. About like that. And we tried to tie something down a little bit tighter. And then we turn around and we drive slowly but carefully. And I'm keeping my eye on the back end like a hawk, so, to see if something else is going to fall off. And then we get back into the house. He takes some of that stuff off, and I think he puts a tarp over the top, and he takes one of those heavy-duty zip ties, and he ties it down some more. And then we drive back to, or not, I shouldn't say back. We head back to where we're supposed to go. Evans in Quebec. Yes. And I called the property manager named Janet, and I called a guy who I've lost touch with, and I don't want to talk to him anymore anyways, and I can't talk about why. A guy named Roland. Yeah, I don't want to say anything more about him. He was getting kind of picky with me, and I just was like, nope, no more phone calls to him, no more. All right, so then once I arrived, my dad and a couple of his nearby friends, good old buddies, started loading most of the stuff up, and I was in the office, and they had to tell me this and this and this and this, and I had to send that and that and that and that and that, and then she handed me this and this and this, keys and some other things. And then I took Penguin out of the truck. I put her in the room, and when he gave me the okay, I opened it up, and she started wandering around just checking the place out, and she was like, yeah, we're back in Denver, yes. She was pretty happy. And then me and so-and-so, former friend, started to talk about a few things, and he just laid there and just kind of sort of took a, not outright a nap, but resting of the eyes and resting with his eyes closed to a point. And then what we did next was he takes me to Whole Foods, and I buy some things that were some needs that I needed. And then we come back, or no, actually we went to have dinner. Then we go get the groceries. Then we come back, and then we leave immediately. And we go see a movie about J.Edgar Hoover and Clyde Tulsa. Yeah. And that was a neat movie. And I think he took me somewhere else really quick to get something else. It might have been groceries. I don't know. I can't remember. That was 12 and that was over 12 and a half years ago now. Yeah. And then he takes me back to my apartment, and I do at least a little bit of unpacking, a little bit, and I crash and I go to sleep. And the next day, I got showered and shaved, and I give the kitty, I give his Penguin her food, and I go and have breakfast at Pete's University Park Cafe. And then I take another bus back to Prince Philip's Tobacco Shop, the one that was originally in Tamarack, the one that's the particular unit that was there in 1997, before he moved to the Micro Center shop, the Goldsmith Shopping Center, in 2012. Okay. So we just talk, and I bought some good pipe tobacco, cigars, and then I went to have a reacquaintance with a banker lady that I don't even want to talk about her, because I'm sorry. After she turned 50 in 2012, she really developed a strange attitude. I mean, strange. And in 2016, she said something about my attorney that was quite damned uncalled for. Meaning that that I was ripped off, that I only got a $100,000 settlement. Shame on her. I'm not going to speak to her again. You don't treat my attorney who really put his neck out for me like that. Okay. Back to the positive. Okay. And then I bought some things that I needed, and I bought some gifts for my dad. And about a day and a half before I think it was about the 23rd of December, the day before Christmas Eve, 2 days before Christmas Day. I booked online. I booked a Greyhound bus. And then I either took a bus, or B, I took a cab. I can't remember, because you see, back in 2012, this was the days before Uber and Lyft. And if Uber and Lyft was around, it wasn't as big as it is now. And I arranged to have a lady who I used to work with, she's also, I think she passed away from ovarian cancer. Yeah, I had to stop and think about this for a minute. The last name was Carlson. I forget her first name. She was a rather obese girl, but she was very, very kind. She came over once a day to feed Penguin and pet her and make her feel good. Or actually, she came twice a day, come to think of it. And then I spent Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, and the day after Christmas, Dad loaded up the pickup bed again. And he put in one of those heavy-duty dollies, furniture dollies, or heavy-duty dollies. And I helped him load things up. And the way he told me to do things and the way I did it, I screwed up a couple of times. He's all, saying the Lord's name in vain because he was a little bit irritated that I didn't do what he said. And then what I did after I got back, I believe if it wasn't the 26th, it was somewhere between the 26th and between the 26th and the 30th, because my printer crapped out and wouldn't work. I bought a new one, an all-in-one printer. And then what was going on was after the first of the year, I really made a really concerted effort to, one, get reestablished with Dr. Bogart, and two, get a neurologist set up. And I went a considerable amount of time without blood pressure medications and anti-seizure medication. I didn't have a seizure, thank God. But when a lady who's a very nice Hispanic lady, I don't remember her name, God bless her, she's very kind. In fact, I think it might have been Juanita or something like that, or Jennifer, or Jenny, or Jen. She took my blood pressure, and my blood pressure wasn't as high as it was on February 22nd, 2010. It was so bad it was at least 156 over 100 something. That's not good. That is not good. And then I had the consultation, or the exam with Dr. Bogart, and he proceeded to hand me a script. And right after the visit ended, I went to Denver Health's pharmacy, which is one of the many features of Denver Health Center itself. And I handed everything in, and I waited in the area that you're supposed to wait for the next refill. Let me go check on something here, and I will be right back. Okay, I'm back. There's a little bit of a thing right here. It might be a pimple. That's what I wanted to check on because it was bugging me, and anyways, I took care of it. Okay, so back to January. Well, after waiting till I saw my name pop up, or my number pop up, and my name, it was something like that. I mean, that was so long ago, I forget exactly how they did things. I got all the prescription drugs, and they proceeded to put them in a bag, and I paid the monies that I needed to pay. And then I took the light rail from there, or no, actually I took some on the bus, and I got on the light rail. I took the light rail from there to Colorado Station, and then I got on the 21, and I took the 21 to my apartment. Okay, so let's get to the 27th of it's somewhere between the 26th and the somewhere between the 25th and the 27th of January 2012. I was approved after I showed up in person and filled out the application for a cat that I wanted that was under a different name. And I was notified that I was approved. And what I did is I went home long enough to go get a cat carrier. And then I went to go sign some papers that I needed to, and I made sure to agree to excuse me. Okay. And I think I might have also gotten some more cat food at the time. Can't remember for sure. And I picked up this kitty cat that I named Milkshake. And I brought her home. The one thing she did, though, was she hid in a part of the apartment building underneath my dresser, and for a while I thought she was missing. And then I just forgot about it. And somewhere between 12 and 1 a.m., I hear the two cats growling at each other, and she got up on my bed, and Penguin wanted to beat, scratch her and beat her up. But I just said, hey, stop that, stop it, like that. I had to be use a little bit of a stern parental tone of voice to keep the cats in line. I had to do it. I don't like talking to a cat like that, but when I'm up for it, when I have to do it, I have to do it. Yep. When I have to be up for it, I do it. And she wouldn't eat very much. So what I did after about 3 days, and I set up an additional cat dish for her, to keep the two separated. I called my veterinarian, Dr. Montz, and Dr. Montz said that I should fill up both the cat food dishes and then put some tuna in the cat food dishes. That should do it. And what happened was I gave one for Penguin and one for Milkshake, and they both came over, and they both liked the same food. And the next day, Milkshake hops up on my bed and she's all going round, 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 wanting to be fed. Oops. Sorry, I almost petted Isabella the wrong way. And then what happens is then what happens a few days later, I had to think about that for a minute, was Milkshake was not only hiding out in a part of the house that no human being should be in. She was there. It's an area that's about roughly this wide, and it is the drywall areas in the framing of the apartment, where one side is the plumbing for the bathroom and the other side is the plumbing for the kitchen. And I put some tuna in there, and then I come out and she's got this snooty look on her, and I grabbed her and I said, "You see this door?" And I spanked her. I said, "Don't you ever go in there again. Bad kitty." Okay, so then what I did is I put an office chair in front of there, and she tried to get in there again, and I spanked her again. Yeah. And then I went over to Family Dollar before that store got dissolved and moved to somewhere else, and got some bungee cords. And I untied, because it wasn't one of those circular knob doors. It was one of those ones where it's kind of like kind of got sort of like a it's got kind of like a what I call a hook knob. You know, shaped kind of like this, like on a coffee mug, or like this coffee mug. You know, this part here, not the whole thing. And I put the bungee cord between them, and so she can't get in there. She still tried to get in there. I spanked her again. And then she tried to get in there one more time, and then I spanked her again. And I really yelled at her, "Don't you ever do that again. I could lose this apartment, and I would get, and they would take you away from me. Bad, 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 bad kitty." And that after that, she stopped. Okay, so when I had another follow-up visit, because you see in the beginning, between January 2012 to roughly April of 2012, Dr. Bogart was seeing me at least once a month, or once every couple of weeks. He had to, because of how bad I got hurt, how bad the skull got fractured, and the brain injury. Okay, so I wrote down a list of questions in one of those leather portfolio legal pad type things. You used to be able to get those back then, but now you can't hardly find them, and if you do, they're going to be expensive. So what I did was I wrote down some notes I wanted to ask him, or questions I wanted to ask him, and one of them was, could I go on a trip? And then I asked him some other things related to the trip. You know, is he going to have to sign a release form? He says no, and because of the type of prescription medications, I don't think that's going to be an issue. And then what I did was I proceeded to look online for package deals. You know, flight plus hotel. And on about the 20th of February, I finally, and this was through either Travelocity or Priceline, I finally decided on a trip to what is called Travelodge Hotel. It's on a street called Vermont, and that area of Vermont is 1.8 to 2.3 miles away from the Hollywood Walk of Fame area of Hollywood Boulevard. Yeah. You know, the main drag of Hollywood. And as I am typing in my debit card, the smartphone rings. My brother, I'm not going to say his name because if he could really hit the roof, the one that I keep in contact with, the one who lives in Florida, he called me to sadly tell me that the sister that had become estranged from the family since about 2005, named Michelle, had passed away. She died somewhere between February 10th and February 15th, 2012, at the age of 53 from liver failure. And it wasn't in some place like Los Angeles or a part of Ontario, Canada that she lived in, or New York City, or the Denver area. It was in, well, actually it wasn't Orlando itself, but it was nearby. I think it was called Almonte Springs. Alamonte Springs, Florida. She died in a hospice. Liver failure. So, what I did is a husband and wife named Brad and Karen. They lived in a really nice house on Emporium Court or Drive in the good part of the deep southeast, or the area near the deep south part of the Denver metro area. And I had the husband, the wife, and the daughter named Maggie, all three come over, and I showed them around and where everything is, and they took care of Penguin and Milkshake while I was on vacation to Los Angeles. So the first day that I left, and I did this a good inexpensive way. I only had about 3 to 4 hours of sleep. I made myself some breakfast, and I said goodbye to the cats. And I went to, or no, I left the house, and I took I carried the telescopic luggage all the way to the stop that is on the northeast street corner of Quebec and Quebec and East Isleff. Here's why I say this, because see, my address was East Evans, but you cross the street, it turns into East Isleff. I know that. Oh goodness, I hit one of the legs on the tripod. I know that doesn't make any sense, but I swear to God it's the truth. I paid the fare, and then I took the 73 all the way to where you would go to get on the what's called the DIA Skyride. It's a shuttle bus that strictly goes to DIA and nowhere else. There's no stop in between. And then what I did was I went to, the airline was either United or Frontier, based on what I remember. I think it was more likely Frontier, to be honest. And I went in to one of the terminal areas, and I got checked in. I paid for my stuff, and I had my luggage double checked, but she said, you want to clean this one out really quick before it was a pipe that still had some tobacco. And I cleaned it out. And then I went down the escalator, and I did the TSA check without a problem. And then I go down another escalator, and I go to the area where it's the in-house train, or the shuttle service, the concourse shuttle. And I went to the concourse A, B, or C, whichever one I was supposed to get off on. And then I walked over to the boarding dock that I'm supposed to go to. And I got on when I was called, and I turned off my smartphone, which was a LG Optimus. And I think I took my laptop with me in a nice carry case. So I got on the plane, I got off at DIA, and I get on the super shuttle that is going to take me to Vermont Streeter Avenue. And I get checked in, and I give them the debit card, and then after I put my luggage in there, I come back into the what's called the office. It just says office out there. And I gave the guy a $20 bill to get set up so that on the next day I could take a trip to Disneyland. Yeah, that day was the first time I had been in Disneyland since Christmas of No, wait a minute. I take that back. I think the time that I went there before. Let me pause and think about it. Okay, after very carefully thinking about this for a couple of minutes, it was the spring of '83. And I've been wanting to go there for quite some time. And then I went to a burger joint after I got that all taken care of to the best of my ability. And I got a nice cheeseburger and fries, which was delicious. And I went to one of the grocery stores to get a thing or two. And then I come back to my hotel room. And then the next day I make sure to get up right when I'm supposed to and get ready to go. Because I was going to go on for a day pass thing, and that cost me about $120. But I had the money, and I went to do it, and the money I spent inside that place, including a Australian cowboy, brown leather cowboy hat, and all the eating I did was, and with that altogether, was probably about $300. Yep, that's how much I spent. And then on the next day after that, I tried to go see a guy. I think he passed away because he was recovering from a bad car collision, and then he suffered a stroke a few months after this particular time. I tried to go to a area of this is not only LA Metro, but it's a part of the city of Los Angeles. It's one of those parts of the city of Los Angeles, like it's got its own city name, when actually what it is a district or a section. I think they pronounce it Fillmar, but it's spelled Sylmar. And I took bus after bus after bus after bus, and he kept talking in circles. And he said, "Look," I called him at one point. I said, "Look, I'm sorry, I can't go see you." And I said, "I'm not gonna." And I said, "Even though I got the money, I'm not gonna go on a taxi ride because that's gonna cost me an arm and a leg. And even though I got the money, that's not the point. The point is, this is too difficult for me to get involved in. It's too stressful. I'm sorry, I can't do it. I gotta go." Click. And then I took a bus back, and the driver advised me where to get off. And then I took another bus to MTA Subway Transit. And then I took that one to it might have been, if it wasn't Hollywood and Vine, it was nearby. It was one of the stops that was near Hollywood and Vine stop, the underground stop. And then I took another bus that led me to Travelodge hotels. And then I went back, and I think I might have did a little swimming because I brought swimming trunks. And then I went to go get something to eat somewhere else. I think it was I'm pretty sure it was House of Pies because their food's delicious. And then the next day, after I go have breakfast at House of Pies, yummy yum yum. I'm sorry. I know that's a little dramatic, but I just like it so much I just want to express myself, but at the same time have restraint. And I looked this up through MTA.com or .net, and I take all the like 2 different buses to get to. It was either 2725 or 2729 Wilshire Boulevard, which is in Santa Monica, not in Los Angeles. And where I went to is a place that no longer exists because it got torn down, and it was a nice little shack, a presentable type of shack instead of a ugly, run-down, decayed shack. A little shack hut type place that was the original, I repeat, the original tinderbox formed by Ed Coplin Sr. Ed Coplin Sr. lived between, I think it was 1910 and 2007, and he lived to be at least 96 years old. Yes. And I went in there, and the clerk that was working there wasn't the general manager, Leo Reyes, who's not with the company anymore because that store's gone. It was another man who was about in his mid-50s, early 60s. Really cool dude. And I could tell by his teeth, he smoked a lot of pipe, but he was a damn nice guy, and he had a good personality, and was pretty friendly. And the thing that I bought was a pipe that was about that big. What it was a similar design to the Sheraton rough top freehand, and it was made by Grenci, Grenci. Grencis are made in Italy, and it might be pronounced something more like Grenci, Grenze, something like that. And I paid $150 for it. And I might have gotten a little pinch of pipe tobacco with it. Yep. And then I took the ride back. And I'm trying to think of what else I did while I was there. Okay, I thought about this for a minute. The day before I went to the day before I went to Tinderbox, which was the day that I tried to go see a guy named Robert. I also went to go see, and when I got to him without a problem. because I took either the red line or the blue line, and then I took a Carson Circuit bus, and I went to his trailer park on near Avalon and Carson Street, and it's a guy named well, I better not say his full name or his last name. Okay, JGF. Yeah. I went to go see JGF at his trailer park. And he had 2 dogs named Maggie and Google. And I think it was Maggie. He would come over and she would come over and she'd come running towards me like she wanted to attack me, going, and she's only a dog a little bit bigger than, about the size of my cat Isabella. and at one point I just go, "Hey, stop it!" He says, "Yeah, squirt her with the water next time," and I just go, psst. Yeah. But he and I had a good time, and he gave me a really, really nice pipe for free. But it needed to be repaired. What it was a Regency pipe. Regency pipes are made by a pipe maker who's now deceased, named David Jones. David Jones lived in, I'm pretty sure it was Texarkana, Texas. And then he made, after he dropped the name Regency, and then he made him David Jones, and then all of a sudden one day he was no longer with us. He was over 80 years old, and he was about 81, 82 years old. He probably died of a heart attack. Well, what can you do? All right. What I did after the day that I went to Tinderbox, I honestly don't remember. So why don't I change the subject? Okay, so the day that I come back, I take a super shuttle bus to LAX, and then and things are about to get interesting, despite the fact I'm going back to Denver. I'm not vacationing and having a ton of fun. And I got my flight without a problem. And then when I get to DIA, I take the Skyride to where I would get the 73. And then I take the 73 to Evans in Quebec. And then I get off and I pull out, I make sure to pull out my luggage with it. And I go up to my, I go up to my apartment, or no, first I check the mail. And there's several things waiting for me because I put my mail on hold for a few days. And then I go up to my apartment through the elevator. Excuse me, Kiwi. And as soon as I unlock the door, Milkshake is following me around, literally to the heels of my shoes, because she's so hungry. So what I did was I go over, as I'm going over the cat food, she's still following me literally to the heels of my shoes, because she would get that bossy and demanding. And I get out the cat food, and I go, and I fill up both dishes, and Penguin's just kind of like, Whatever, Matt. Give me one of those looks. And then I'm hungry. So I go across the street to a restaurant that is quite unfortunately closed down somewhere in 2013. And it was a good Mexican restaurant called La Cacnia de Marcos. They had very good food and they're reasonably priced. I go in there, and the guy that helps me is a man who I've known since 1996. Now this is where things get really, really interesting. I better not say his full name because he could really hit the roof. He's a nice guy, but something like that could really piss him off. It's okay, RI. So I go to see old RI. I've known him since 1996, and he is the waiter for me. And I believe I ordered either some tacos or a smothered breakfast burrito, or not smothered breakfast burrito, a smothered burrito. Yeah. And then at some point, I told him that I no longer worked for Tamarack Ace anymore. And he said, "Yeah, I kind of figured that because the few times I wasn't there. I think I heard something about how you were in the hospital for a while." And I said I was, and I told him why, and he was really shocked. And he says, "You know something? You were the guy who I drove past when you got hit, because I could see you bleeding, but I wasn't sure if it was you. He just happened to drive past me going in a northern direction instead of in a southern direction, because northern would be that direction and southern would be that direction." Yes. Okay. Then after I got back, I proceeded to on and off look for jobs. I applied here and there for jobs, and I'm referring to a period between about March 3rd and April 25th. Here is what happens on April 25th. I couldn't sleep that well. I only slept for about 2 hours tops. Had kind of an insomnia type feeling. I get up, and even though I'm feeling tired and woozy, I go to the respiratory care department of Denver Health. And here was why. And let me jump back a little bit too. On St. Patrick's Day of 2012, I personally spent the night at National Jewish Hospital and Medical Care Facility. It was for a sleep test. The results of the sleep test were that I tested positive for sleep apnea. Yeah. And and the results of me testing positive after March 17th, I finally got it established to have and set up to receive a CPAP kit, Philips Respironics CPAP machine, and the other equipment that goes with the CPAP machine. Okay, so on the 25th, I got to the appointment when I was supposed to. I was instructed on how to use the kit and how to hook it up to my face in the whole 9 yards. And then I think I went to go to Sam's number 3 for breakfast. And then I take probably a light rail, RTD light rail, to Colorado Station. Then I get up the stairs and I get on the 21, I get back to my apartment. I try to take a nap for a little bit. And then I get not back to, but this will be the first visit of the day, or the only time that day, I should say, to Chase Bank. And I made a deposit, and then I sit down and I talk with a certain woman again, and all of a sudden I just can't think. And then she says, well, why don't you sit down over here until you feel better, sit down, and then whoop, I go into convulsions. And she called 911 right away. And the paramedics took me away. That was the second grand mal seizure I had, even though I took my medication earlier that day. And after I was released from Swedish by the emergency room people, I talked to Dr. Bogart, and a couple of days later we met, and he said he was going to start increasing my, he said it should be taken twice a day so this doesn't happen again. It was the Epital 200 milligram anti-seizure machine, or medication. And then I got established with neurologist Dr. Kern a few days after that, and he was the one that outright advised me that the type of brain hemorrhage I had was actually a cerebral brain hemorrhage. Whoa, that was quite a shocker. And on June 16th, 17th, or 18th, I finally got hired someplace. It wasn't Tamarack Ace, it wasn't an Ace Hardware, and it wasn't a grocery store, but it was Sonic Drive-In. I put up with that job as long as I could, and then on August 28th, I got fired. But one of the good things that happened, not concerning the job, anything that happened at the job, one of the good things that did happen was I got set up with a specialist named Dr. Jaw, J-H-A. Yeah, Dr. Jaw's deceased. He was getting old, and he didn't have to have a wheelchair in the sense that he couldn't walk even if he tried, but he had a lot of difficulty, and he was using the wheelchair quite a bit. Some type of leg joint problem, more than likely, is what I personally assume. And from the 28th of August until November 30th, I tried hard to look for a job, but I didn't look the right way because my brain had gotten scrambled from the traumatic brain injury. And I then called my father. This was a Saturday night after I dropped something off that I needed to return at the library in the drop slot, the depository, or the deposit slot. And I called him on the phone, and I talked to him about coming back to live with him. And he says, well, it is what it is. He says, I'm going to want to think about this. I'll call you tomorrow and I'll talk to you. We'll talk more about it. And that night, I had a very, very difficult time getting back to sleep. In fact, Penguin would stay near me and let me pet her most of the time because she was so concerned about me. And somewhere around 7 o'clock in the morning, I get up, I feed the cats. No, actually 6 o'clock in the morning. And then roughly about 7 o'clock, I finally got to sleep. And I slept until 2 p.m. And my phone was off and on the charger. What it wasn't a smartphone. It was it was by Boost Mobile. It was a Sanyo Incognito. It was one of those phones that opens about like this, instead of opening up all the way like a flip phone like that. Yeah. And my dad had called and left me a voicemail message. Then I called him back, and I better not say how much money, but he gave me some money to help pay the rent. That's all I'm going to say. Then I sold some things on eBay, and I made over $150. And the two combined together, I had enough money to pay for the rent on January 5th, the deadline date, so I didn't have to pay a late fee fine or late rent payment fine. And then what happened is I still continued to look for a job, and I was really starting to get frustrated because the economy wasn't going like this in Denver. It had pretty much flatlined, going like that. And on December 22nd or 23rd, I woke up early. Right after I made breakfast, I left the house, and I go to the Colorado Department of Labor, and I talked to them about unemployment benefits. And then what I did was I couldn't get an emergency check issued, but he did advise me to go to the Denver Office of Treasury Department, City and County Denver government. And I went to them, and they said that they could not help. And I talked to him about emergency rent services, and he advised me to go to the Social Services Office, or what is also formerly known as U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. Or no, not that. Good grief. U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, or Human Resources. DHHR. And I took the two different RTD routes that I would take, and I went downstairs and I talked to the rent help department. And then what I did was I went back upstairs, I took a number, and I waited to talk to someone about food assistance. It's what's called EBT SNAP food assistance, monthly allotment. And I filled everything out, and then I handed everything in, and then the guy called me back, and he said that I definitely qualify. And then I went downstairs and I got the check, and then he asked me to come back and provide certain types of documentation. I came back the next day, and I handed in the documents. But on Christmas Day, and I called a manager to ask for this, I talked to a Village Inn, which has since closed down because there's not that many Village Inns left. And I asked for some pancakes for free and something to drink, which he gave me for free. But he says, I'm only going to do this once. I'm only going to do it because it's Christmas Day. And then I think I walked back home. And then, day after day after day, I'm waiting to get approved to get the monthly allotment sent to me. And on December 29th or 30th, finally, because I called the toll-free number, it was there. And I walked to Whole Foods and I bought the food that I needed. So from January 1st to from January 5th to January 8th, I had called over 30 different Christian and secular charities to get rent assistance, but I couldn't get anything. So I made a deal with my dad to come live with him. And I gave up the 2 cats to a lady who lived on the 4th floor. And on January 14th, 2013, I left Denver. Not forever, but it sure felt like it. And from January, so until about January 20th or 21st, I did a lot of settling in and getting established. And then on Monday morning, I think it was the 21st of January, I left the house when I was supposed to. And I started looking for a job. And I also got established with the Workforce Center office, which is a division of the Colorado Department of Labor and Unemployment. And I made sure to take accurate documents of all the job searching I did and how I was spending my money, because my father did that as a heavily mandatory must. And then on Saturday, he and I sat down and I showed him everything. Yeah. And then I kept searching and searching and searching for a job. And I think it was by late February, I got established with a physician, Dr. Chang. And on, let's see here. On June 4th, I finally got hired somewhere. It was Dollar General on Pueblo Boulevard. And then what happened was on a couple of weeks after my 40th birthday, Dad sat me down and had a pretty serious talk. He basically said that if I didn't really shape up and start working full time and save money. I was going to wind up homeless. And I really started looking really hard for jobs. I mean, really hard. 7 days a week. And on and in mid-October, he and I sat down for, I can't say the exact name of it, but it was a pleasant father and son conversation. And basically, here's what he said, and this was really good, really caring, really giving. He said that required me to only live with him for 1 year. He was going to lift the restriction, and that I could live in the house as long as I wanted. And he also said that he was going to lift the restriction because I was so slow helping him, or I was kind of slow at times when I helped him the first time cleaning up houses. He was going to lift the restriction of me of helping him, and he was going to let me help out with a house that he had anticipated was going to become vacant. And that he also suggested that I start looking into possibly doing volunteer work eventually. Well, what happened after November 1st of 2013 onward, even though I called several times about when I was going to be scheduled, Dollar General didn't fire me, they didn't lay me off, they didn't force me to resign or anything like that, they just phased me out. And I helped him clean up a house that was that was being occupied by a terrible drug addict until my dad filed an eviction notice on it. Yeah. And he, or no, not, well, but yeah. What I did is I did a lot of cleaning. I mean, a lot. I mean, the basement had so much sawdust and little chunks of wood, little pieces that were from something that would have been sawed off of some strips of wood or 2x4s and stuff. It took over an hour to sweep everything up because there was so much to sweep up. And I did a lot of other things to help him out. In fact, a couple of books that he said I could keep, do what I wanted with them, I put them up on eBay, and I made some decent money. Yeah. Okay, so after the first of the year, there was 2 people that went bye-bye. One was a girl in a house called Mayron, and I helped him clean that one up first. I did a lot of work. I mean, a lot. But the scrubbing the walls, I didn't do as good of a job as he wanted, so he made me do it again. And then after we got that house up to snuff and all cleaned out, he got that rented immediately. Yeah. And then the house on Pine, I helped him clean that up, and that one was even worse. There was a dog that peed all over the place, and ew. Whew. I did a hell of a lot of cleaning inside and out on that baby. Yeah. And I did a better job scrubbing the walls. Yeah. And then at one point he asked me to stop what I was doing and help him clean up the house that was in Mayron and help the new people move in, and then I get $50 from them for it, which was nice to have a little bit of cash on hand to buy some things that I needed. And then what happened was after I cleaned those two houses up, and this was in 2014, after February 2014, I proceeded to keep looking for jobs. Didn't have any luck. And the other thing that was going on was a private sector attorney was doing everything she could on her end to get a appeal hearing date set up with an administrative law judge. Finally, on August 17th, 2014, I was notified from my attorney's office that an appeal hearing date would be established on November 12th, 2014. On September 8th of 2014, my dad set me down for what this is when he really wants to have a serious talk and get me to really get involved in something important. Called it a powwow. He and I had a powwow about he convinced me, and I agreed to it 100% because looking for a job was starting to really frustrate me pretty heavily. In fact, there'd be days I'd start off getting such a bad headache it was almost as bad as a migraine. It was stressed me out so bad. It was really frustrating me. He basically said, I want you to start doing at least 30 hours a week of volunteer work, Monday through Friday, because you're searching for a job is not very effective at all, and it's a waste of time. And what I did is I started doing volunteer work at ARC thrift stores. And on September 17th or something like that, I didn't go do volunteer work for very long because what I had to do was I had to help him get ready for his 70th birthday party, which was on September 20th, 2014. And I had a blast at that party. I really did. I got to see at least 3 people I hadn't seen in over 10 years that were friends of his. He's somebody he's been friends with for quite some time. And then on October 7th of 2014, I was accepted to become a volunteer at St. Mary's Corwin Hospital by a guy named, well, I can't say his full name, but he went by J.D. J.D. was a really incredible, wonderful man. And I started doing volunteer work in the Sleep Disorder Center EEG lab. And then, sorry, I had to pet my kitty. Then I started doing volunteer work, and one of the good benefits of that is I had, or I was receiving as a, not as wages, but a per diem, a $10 per diem to eat in the cafeteria. And they had some good food there. They really did. I mean, they had some good chili, but boy, I only ate that a few times because otherwise I really had a gas problem and I was pretty stinky. That's all I'll say. And I really started to learn some work ethics and how to multitask and how to anticipate things. I mean, that was thumbs up and a nice escalation, nice rehabilitation. On November 12th at roughly about 8:55 a.m. Well, correction, it was somewhere between 8:45 and 8:40 and 8:45. Me and Dad arrived at the Social Security Annex section. No, let me say that all over again. I'm awfully sorry. The Social Security Administration branch office, and we sat in the lobby. And me, my dad, and the attorney named I'll call her well, I'll just call her Lundy. Lady Lundy. And we all three had a conference before we entered the hearing room to have an appeal hearing in front of an administrative law judge. Now, he wasn't physically there, and the reason for that was, you see, it was snowing outside. It wasn't snowing like super heavy, but between Colorado Springs, where his judicial office was, and Pueblo, there could be some weather belts where it could get really ugly, really icy, slick. Not a good area to be driving a car on. And then what happened was I come in, and the judge asked me the questions that he had to ask. And if I didn't give him the right answer, he'd ask me again. And then after about 20 to 25 minutes, I was excused, and my father comes in, and he testifies about, and he says a lot of little things that flip the switch inside the judge. It's just, you see, during the hearing, he couldn't show it. He still had to keep a very professional type of composure. And then after the hearing was, or after he said his piece, I was called back. And then what happened was, I came back for another 15 to 20 minutes. And somewhere between 9:55 and 10:02, the hearing was adjourned. And then after the hearing, me and the attorney went into an area where there's two different sets of doors that is like a corridor to enter. And we had a little one-on-one conference that lasted 3 to 5 minutes. And then after that, me and my dad left, and the hearing and the big thing that needed to happen happened, or got underway to happen. Let me pause for a minute. I'll be right back.